Well, hi everyone. It's 2 o'clock here in Sydney, so we're going to get started. People are still joining at the moment, so just going to go through some housekeeping and then we will get into the presentations. Before we get started, I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land that we're all on today and the continuous connection to land and sea. For me, I am on Darug land, and I know that, all of us are from across the country as well. Before we get started, just a conflict of interest disclaimer. For those of you that don't know me, I'm the water sensitive urban design specialist at Ocean Protect. And so there is that potential conflict around the idea of trying to improve WSUD maintenance. However, the reality is everyone does have a conflict in the industry, and controls have been put in place to manage it, but also you all do have your own conflicts. And so if you can just try and manage that today where possible. In terms of today, just starting off with some housekeeping for the first 5 minutes, just accepting people into the room. But yeah, so housekeeping at the start, then we're going to hand it over to Angela Dunnett from PRCG and Caroline Chandler from E2 Design Lab, who will be providing a bit of an update on some work that the Parramatta River Catchment Group has been doing. There'll be an opportunity for some Q&A after that. Followed by that, there'll be a presentation from the New South Wales DQ Department of Climate Change, Energy, the Environment and Water, so the state government in New South Wales, about their newly published WSUD guide. There'll be an opportunity for some Q&A with them. And then following that, looking to try wrap up around that 1 hour mark. Just the housekeeping while we still get people joining. If you can just keep yourself on mute when you're not speaking, so there's no weird background noises. When you have something to say during those Q&A sessions, if you can just raise your hand virtually and we can call upon you. And when you do speak, if you can just say what organization you're from so people know who you are and what you kind of do for work. And if you can just be respectful of everyone's opinions, ideas, and time. We're all going to have different opinions on things. We're all going to have, sorry, got distracted by Zoom. But we're going to be needing to think outside of the box, but also in terms of time. This is not a sales environment. It's not to push or promote your technology, your services, your whatever you sell. And so that's kind of in relation to that conflict of interest. I would just like to say that we're getting nearly at 3 years old for this network, and these are just some of the organizations that have been involved to date. And look, there's been many more. There's been a lot of people coming these past 3 years, and just want to say thank you to all of the people that keep coming, and thank you to any new ones that haven't been here before. For those of you that are new, the National WSUD Compliance Network is a group meeting regularly every 2 months to discuss WSUD compliance, and as an opportunity to help kind of hold the development of the WSUD Maintenance Compliance Framework accountable, making it transparent and providing you that opportunity to get involved with it. The framework, for those of you not familiar with it, is a free package of information, resources, and tools for councils to improve their implementation and management of WSUD assets within their jurisdiction. And that has received in-principle support from 8 organizations to date. And so we've got companies, catchment groups, state associations. And if you're interested in learning more about them or about how you could become an in-principle supporter, please feel free to reach out at any time. Before I hand it over to Angela, Caroline is here, cool. Just kind of putting the contact details in case you do need to leave early. This meeting will be recorded and the slides and that recording will be made available on the website, wsudcompliance.com.au. You can also connect with us on LinkedIn, or you can also access the framework if you haven't done so yet. So we're now up to the first presentation about the Parramatta River Catchment Group WSUD Uplift Project. For that, we have Angela Dunnett, who is the Stormwater Education and Compliance Officer at the Parramatta River Catchment Group. She's been there for a bit over 2 years, I believe. And then Caroline Chandler is the Senior Principal Scientist at E2 Design Lab, which is a water technology company. And so she's one of the consultants that has been involved in this first stage of this WSUD Uplift project. And so I'll hand it over to Angela and Caroline. I'm not sure, Caroline, if you want me to share slides or if you would prefer to do that.
Daniel, actually, if you could share the slides, that
Yep.
would be great. Thank you.
No worries. Wait, sorry, wrong slide.
Oh, that's right.
Too many windows.
I understand. Just while we're doing that, I'd also like to pay respects to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. I am also meeting on Darug land today, so I pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging.
Sorry, this. Why is this not on it?
We can see the first slide.
Yeah, but it's not the. It's because I have too many screens.
Oh yeah.
Sorry. Let me just exit. So I will start this again.
So I'll just also give you a bit of a background to the Parramatta River Catchment Group and how we got to be doing this project. So the Water Sensitive Urban Design Uplift Project came out of funding from Department of Climate Change, Energy, Environment and Water, New South Wales, and it was an election commitment for 4 years for the Parramatta River to work on a number of stormwater projects. So we are an organisation of councils, voluntary organisation of councils and of state government and Sydney Water bodies that come together for a common goal to look at ways that we can protect our fantastic river in the middle of Sydney. So we've got 10 councils. We work with Sydney Water, the New South Wales EPA, and we also work with other partners such as Sydney Olympic Park and Transport for New South Wales. We have some subcommittees that include the Stormwater Subcommittee and Regulatory Subcommittee, and they've been very instrumental in working on this project with us. Next slide, please. So we have had a master plan for over 10 years now at the Parramatta River Catchment Group. And as I've discussed, is that one of our main priorities was to look at improving stormwater overflow in private and public domains. But we also work at working with the community. We work at wastewater overflows. We look at things such as bank naturalisation. To actually, our mission was to make the Parramatta River swimmable again. And we have had a number of sites that have opened. And some of you probably already know about places like Dawn Fraser. So a bit of background for this project is that we were looking at Daniel's and I guess Ocean Protect's WSUD compliance framework, and we were also talking with Blacktown City Council, who has piloted and rolled their project into a compliance program. But we realised that before we can actually start a compliance program, that we needed to actually engage with members across our catchment, but also internally with the different players within our catchment, within council. Because what we recognised after I had done a bit of auditing internally is that stormwater compliance really touched on very many parts at council. So we had stormwater engineers, we needed to engage with planners, we also needed to talk with the compliance teams to see what what was happening in their space, and if they could also give us information about issues that they were having. And we're setting this in the context that Sydney is undergoing a lot of development, and the Parramatta River is having a lot of transport orientated development. So we realise that this is the time that we need to look at private assets and try and get them to be compliant for, I guess, the future. So what brought about this project was that we had Wave do an audit for us in 2022, and we found that only 20% of the assets were designed, were actually installed, and that 14% of them, people didn't even know that those assets were in place. So that's where we led to this next part of the project. So I think, next slide. Thanks, Daniel. So to kick off this project, we use literature reviews, we used a stakeholder survey, and then we use that to build in and design 6 in-person workshops and 4 technical sessions for over 72 attendees across the Parramatta River catchment. Again, we couldn't have done this without the support of Blacktown City Council and their learnings. So I really have a call out to them. I'd also say what we found from the survey, and I think we got 44 responses from the survey across the different areas of council that are responsible for a WSUD compliance program, that they identified that was definitely a gap in people outside the developers, the certifiers, and generally people that have these assets do not know that they're there, that they need to be maintained, and that they just don't know. So we've got some very good findings that have come out of that. So I will let Caroline explain how the workshops transpired and what the outcomes of those were. Thank you.
Thank you, Angela. Thanks, everyone, for having us here today. I'd also like to acknowledge Dale Brown, my colleague, who I think is somewhere in the room here today. Of course, Kate Murphy at Blacktown, all the officers from the PRCG who were involved in these workshops, and there may be some here today. And of course, Daniel, who has been involved and engaged in this process throughout. So yes, I think as Angela explained, part of the challenge of developing a catchment-wide compliance program for water-sensitive urban design assets on lot is understanding the key issues, confirming the barriers and challenges, understanding administrative processes across different councils, understanding how covenants and other instruments were being used, and council-specific issues. So we did that through a survey, multiple workshops. Those are also focused on capacity building as well as engagement. And we then completed a needs analysis, and through that co-designed a WSUD compliance pilot program that could be delivered across the catchment. We also identified some additional complementary actions that sit in the space of policy planning, advocacy, working with the state government, technical and capacity building, and also looking at internal processes. So we'll talk through those in a moment. We are concluding this part of the project now, which is phase 1, and handing it over to Wave Consulting for phase 2. I'm not sure if Rob's here today. And they will be developing some supporting resources as identified through this project. If we could just move to the next slide. Oh, and those are the sessions that we ran there. We ran some very practical sessions on identifying on the ground WSUD compliance issues. So if you're inspecting, what to look out for, how to set up monitoring and record keeping for a WSUD management information management system. We did some workshops on conditions and covenants, and also some troubleshooting around music and development assessments. Thank you. Okay, so as Angela's indicated, we're in a context of increasing brownfield and infill development. We also know that there's inadequate maintenance of private WSUD assets. We know that that's also informed by inadequate design and planning in that space as well. So that's really what we were looking at. If we could just click to the next, thank you. What we found is that the needs analysis confirmed a range of barriers. Firstly, that there are multiple development types in this space that are being managed by different consent authorities, and they each have their different planning requirements across the Parramatta River catchment. So really there's a limited basis there to support good planning, delivery and maintenance of WSUD, and also to provide that consistency to developers in the space. There are also issues with complying and state significant development. A second issue was challenges in meeting the requirements of multiple administrative process gates, and all of these play a really key role in enabling functional assets, from development assessment to construction and handover, hold points, operation and maintenance, and then of course compliance and enforcement. And then, of course, across all of these gates, we saw multiple players, all with different capacity and understanding of WSUD, from developers, applicants, through to council officers across a range of different teams and areas, and of course, private certifiers who do not typically have any expertise in the assessment of specialist matters like water-sensitive urban design. Finally, from an organisational capability and systems perspective, councils are quite limited in being able to follow a WSUD asset through the entire life cycle, from planning to renewal. They don't typically have consolidated systems to track on lot WSUD assets. So that was identified as a key need to address, building again from the learnings from Blacktown City Council. Thank you. Next slide. So through this process, we co-designed a pilot WSUD compliance program. Now, the pilot is on the basis that a council can enter at the stage that it's at, and follows a journey of embedding towards, transitioning towards more embedded practices. So you could be at the start of your journey, or you could already have an existing system that you're seeking to improve. But the idea is that everyone can approach it on the basis of the resources they have and where they're at. Now, there are multiple core action areas. I'll only talk to a few of these today, but really it's about establishing the right governance for the project, both internally and through the PRCG and the subcommittees. It's also about agreeing on a program scope that can be delivered given existing resources, because at this stage, councils haven't yet set up a business case to establish more resourcing for a more established compliance program. It's also about setting up the right administrative processes, including tracking of a WSUD on lot, tracking of covenants, tracking of annual reporting on existing assets, and making sure that they're being maintained as per their maintenance schedule, that they've been constructed as per their workers' executed plans. The other key areas are about the group developing standard conditions that can be applied with a standard intent across the catchment. Of course, each council may vary a little, but the intent remains the same. That officers are equipped to undertake consistent assessment in the development assessment process, and that is achieved through capacity building. And that councils can also implement new compliance and enforcement activities around these WSUD assets. Other key components, of course, are having both a coordinated communication and engagement approach across councils with the PRCG and then to the state government and to other bodies, including looking at engagement with the private certifiers, with associations in this space to further communicate the message, and of course to monitor the effectiveness of this pilot program so that over time a business case can be built to set up a more established program. And I will move to the next slide, please. Thank you. So the three key points to touch on really come down to resourcing. In a pilot program, we are going to be leveraging off existing resources to develop processes and to develop capability to deliver a program, to understand what it is that we need to manage. And so with that in mind, one of the first key steps is to start gathering data on private WSUD assets with covenants in councils, and to establish an approach to information management. Of course, Ocean Protect have developed some very useful templates there that can be leveraged to develop those internal information management systems. And those are the first steps really that you need to start looking at a catchment level to start to understand what it is that you're managing. In terms of the definition of the scope, we are recommending that the program consists of 10 properties per council that go through this whole WSUD compliance process. So those properties may have one asset or multiple assets. They may have OSD systems. They may have, some more complex proprietary systems. But the idea there is that in this way, you can start tracking data. You can start looking at all the necessary activities to ensure that those assets are compliant and to set up your systems internally, the teams that need to be involved, etc. From a resourcing perspective, we are proposing that there is an executive sponsor, that there is someone internally who is appointed to coordinate the program, and also to coordinate a working group, which would comprise members of planning, development engineering, building compliance, catchments, and others who might be playing a role in ensuring that the WSUD asset is functional. So really setting up the system. Thank you. Next. Again, just to highlight that it's really building on best practice approaches. It has looked quite carefully at Blacktown City Council's process, and we've had Kate Murphy profiling that for us at a number of workshops and doing a deep dive, and also considering the processes and resources that have been developed as part of the WSUD Maintenance Compliance Framework and how they can be applied as part of the pilot. Thank you. Phase 2 will comprise the development of supporting resources, and our recommendation is that these are packaged by audience. So we are looking at 5 packages of information. The first is really about supporting new property owners in the municipality and those who are undertaking any planning applications at that pre-planning phase, having introductory fact sheets that alert you to your responsibilities around the management of WSUD assets that may be on a property that you've bought, and if you're going to be undertaking any planning applications, then what your requirements are in that space. And that then alerts you to the next package of information, which is about the design and construction of water-sensitive urban design. So if you are going to be going down that track as a developer or as a developer consultant, as a planning applicant, what the requirements are there, what the assets are, how they work, what your obligations are, and how important maintenance is down the track. The idea there is to not just look at maintenance, it's to look at the whole life cycle and refer them to the necessary existing resources. And for that purpose, another recommendation is that the PRCG incorporate a branded version of Blacktown City Council's WSUD inspection and maintenance guidelines for use by councils across the catchment, and that councils continue to use and improve on their existing developer handbooks for water-sensitive urban design. Those become references in these guidance fact sheets that are included in these packages. There's also going to be if we just go back there, a WSUD compliance framework information pack which talks about this pilot and is for council officers who will be participating, and we'll talk to them about how to be involved in all the different action areas and what the implementation approach is. We're also promoting guidance for private WSUD owners and managers, again about their obligations, and then for private certifiers. So the intention is to build these up as fact sheets, webinars, and to build them up over time, so that the resources increase as, again, resources become available to deliver them. Next, thank you. In terms of supporting actions, I'll just highlight a few. We're looking at catchment-wide application and use of relevant technical tools, and also advocacy around WSUD that is not subject to council development consent, discussions with the state government about the complying in state significant development, engagement with certifiers around the certification process and how we can improve WSUD outcomes in that space, as well as how to continue to build capacity of private certifiers. Thank you. In terms of some key lessons, I think the key part really has been that working together, this collaboration has been essential for preparing an acceptable regional response that can be taken on and implemented by councils. Therefore, understanding capacity is key. Capacity building through the workshops, again, has, I think, brought back into discussion where best practice really needs to be adopted and considered in the assessment and the maintenance process, how we can learn from existing councils in this space, and that, of course, sectoral capacity building is going to continue to be necessary. I think a final learning I'd like to talk to is really that through this process, we gathered a lot of officers from different parts of council, really supporting them to work together to discuss WSUD, perhaps in a manner that traditional ways of operating don't support. So the workshops worked very well to break silos and to support that ongoing engagement after the workshops. Angela, I'd like to invite you to just make any further comments on that, please.
I think, as I said, the key is to actually making these resources accessible and to improving water literacy, because I think, as we know, because a lot of these assets are, people don't know that they exist or that they're underground. It's about building the capacity of all people, such as our GMs, our councillors, the general community that live in multi-unit dwellings. It's an opportunity for us to work internally, improving the skills and knowledge internally and improving processes, but also bringing external stakeholders with us as well too. So I think this is it's a very good opportunity, and it fits well in even with the state government guidelines that they're talking about next.
Thanks, Angela. And so I think just to wrap up, we've left some questions there for people to think about in the next slide. You know, really, how do we shift the dial for stormwater to be included in longer term planning? Your experiences around improving outcomes in compliant development and SSDAs, and any other learnings that you might like to bring to the table in the discussion. I appreciate we don't have a lot of time for discussion now, but I'm happy to be contacted about any questions later as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Angela and Caroline, for that presentation. It's great to hear kind of how this project has gone, and I'm sure a lot of people here are interested and have their own questions, and happy to kind of open it up for Q&A if anyone has any questions for either Angela or Caroline. Otherwise, I'm happy to ask some questions, but yeah, feel free to raise your hand virtually if you would like to ask a question. But in the meantime, I'm just going to ask, so there was reference to the WSUD Maintenance Compliance Framework. I was just curious, how was that used within these workshops? And is there any plans of kind of using parts of it or going forward with the next part?
Yes,
Excellent.
so with the package of resources, the fact sheets, which are, PRCG branded, for example, how you might participate in the compliance program, would include reference to the WSUD maintenance compliance framework as relevant, particularly the templates. And I know that those are sort of the basis of how Blacktown initially approached their work as well. So it's discussed that whilst the intention longer term might be to integrate these into your council systems, that you will be starting with an Excel-based approach. So use of the process maps and of the guidelines, we did bring those into the workshops, and certainly important to leverage off existing materials and guidance.
I just might add to that. I had a chat with some of the compliance officers to also say that there were materials available to help them, so that they didn't need to start from scratch, because if anyone knows compliance officers, they're often dealing with multiple issues in the environment. So it was assuring them that they didn't have to start from absolute scratch. I think the pilot is a great approach to go by, and also by having these additional materials with the different stakeholders, we're hoping to actually reduce some of that regulatory burden further down the track, and also things going back to the development engineers. The idea is that we're trying to get everyone on a reasonably equal playing field and help skill them up.
No, thanks for that. I'm just going to go to the question that Michelle has asked, and I'll come to you, Russell. But Michelle Hennessy from Brisbane Council has asked in the chat, how did you get elected representative buy-in for this project?
Angela.
Yeah. You're on mute, Angela.
I'm back. Yeah. So we've used our regulatory subcommittee to drive this. Oh, sorry. We've used our stormwater subcommittee that's been existing as part of our secretariat to drive this project. So they are our champions, but we also have full group meetings where we give briefings to councillors and senior officers. So we'll use them and a motion at our next meeting for a pilot. That being said, I think it's still going to be a challenge to get that buy-in. So I think education is the key.
Yeah, thanks, Angela. And yeah, Michelle says thank you for that.
Yeah.
Russell from Ku-ring-gai Council, former Blacktown WSUD Compliance Officer.
Hi, great prezzo, and yeah, fantastic work. Question about the 10 properties. How will they be chosen, and is it like it'll be an opt-in type thing, or and will it be commercial, industrial, residential? Just wondering if you've thought about that.
Yes. We did have some long discussions around this. Certainly, one approach is to, take the approach that Blacktown has taken and prioritise based on a similar typology. But looking across the board, we identified that MUDs are probably another quite suitable typology, and then the individual councils have more, I think, primary development typologies at the smaller scale. So really, it is going to be a little bit dependent on what the priority is for that council. There are advantages in focusing on setting up the processes and systems as being a key output first, with the development typology consistency across the catchment perhaps being a secondary. However, there are benefits in also having MUDs across the board and seeing how differently they're being approached. So I think part of the first stages are to prioritise 2 or 3 different development typologies that still needs to be confirmed with the planners, and then through that process to start gathering the data and to start with, well, which ones have covenants, and then through that process to select. But again, it's going to really be down to how we can maximise the existing resources. So it's a work in progress, I think, Russell, this one, but it'll be established over the next 6 months, year.
Okay. So it'll be an opt-in type thing, as in they'll have to agree to it, or you'll just say, oh, you were the lucky property.
Yes, I think that's something that the regulatory subcommittee and the planners will need to establish the best approach for. We haven't considered that in detail, but it's an important point. Angela, do you have any thoughts?
I'm not going to give them the opt-in personally, but as I said, the first few months is improving the education and improving the systems, and then maybe it might be we'll take it from there. We're probably not going to go back, but we're just going to use what's going forward, and it's really at a critical time as we're getting all this development going in. So it's time for us.
And the other point too is noting that Blacktown started with 20 and resourcing. We need to certainly not put too much pressure on this initial stage and make the first year setting up of systems with it's really looking at a 5 to 10 year program here to set it up across the board consistently.
Thanks for that, Caroline. Just noting time, if anyone does have more questions, we can discuss this closer to the end of today's meeting, just so we can get the state government on and chatting now. So let me just get out of this. So I will be handing it over now to the Claudia Costello, who is the acting senior policy officer from the New South Wales Department of Climate Change, Energy, the Environment and Water, to talk about the WSUD guide that they recently published. And so I'll hand that over to her if she is online. I believe she is.
Perfect. Thank you, Daniel. I'll just share my screen.
Yeah.
Okay, can everyone see that?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so hi everyone. Thanks for having me today. So as Daniel said, I'm going to give you an introduction to the New South Wales Water Sensitive Urban Design Guide. I'm also first going to give you a bit of an introduction to our New South Wales Government WSUD project, which the guide sits in. And we'll talk about some of the ongoing work that we're doing as well. So my academic background is in government and policy, and I have a Master's of Environmental Science. I've been working in Water Group for 2 years, but I'm not a WSUD expert. So we knew from the beginning of this project we needed subject matter experts. So Richard McManus, a stormwater expert, has been advising throughout the project. And we worked with Alexa McCauley from Seville in developing the guide. Stakeholders have been involved through a survey and interviews, and people across New South Wales government have informed and reviewed the guide. So from our research and consultation came 2 key problems our WSUD project is trying to help address. One is that there is inconsistent and limited uptake and maintenance of WSUD assets and achievement of WSUD outcomes in urban areas. And the other is that stakeholders told us that they really wanted to see state government leadership, support and direction. So the guide that we've published is the first stage in addressing these problems and will be supplemented with more detailed guidance as the project goes on. So the main purpose of the guide is to promote a consistent understanding across the state of what WSUD is and how a WSUD approach can be applied. So this is an introductory guide to WSUD. It's setting the scene. It's getting everyone on the same page. It's making the connections to other New South Wales government policies, and it's making it clear that this is something that the New South Wales government supports. The guide has been designed so that anybody can pick it up and understand what WSUD is and apply a clear process to take a WSUD approach. So because of this, the intended audiences and users are broad, and so are the ways that the guide can be used. So the guide can be used in New South Wales government to support a WSUD approach in the urban planning and design process, and for local governments as something to help structure and support the implementation of WSUD policies, plans, projects, and management initiatives. But it's also been created with developers, design and engineering professionals, planners, and the community in mind. So we want the guide to support the fostering of strong cross-disciplinary collaborations. So the importance of that is also mentioned throughout the document. So I'm going to run through some of the things that you'll find in the guide. In the introduction, we position the guide among related New South Wales government strategies, policies, and guides. So the guide is informed by these policies. The supporting guidance we are developing under the next stage of the project will sit below the guide. After the introduction section, the guide goes back to basics and has a section on the water cycle. This is because when we were speaking to people who were new to WSUD, we found that for them to understand why you would undertake a WSUD approach, they first needed to understand how urban development impacts water. From our engagement, we heard that in practice, WSUD was often focused on stormwater, but that in alignment with most other definitions out there, it should be broader. So we defined water-sensitive urban design as an approach that integrates the entire water cycle, including potable water, wastewater, and stormwater, into urban planning and design to provide healthier and more resilient landscapes and waterways and livable cities and towns. We positioned WSUD as combining the elements of integrated water cycle management, urban design, and urban ecology. So we also heard from people that it was important to capture the wide range of outcomes that a WSUD approach can help to achieve. So the guide identifies 12 outcomes of WSUD. We positioned these outcomes as interconnected, where achieving one can also help you achieve another. And we also reiterate throughout the guide how important a interdisciplinary approach and a place-based approach is in achieving these outcomes. So the guide has a quick reference table for these outcomes, which is also available on our website as a separate downloadable document. This is just a screenshot here of the first page, but you can see it explains the outcome, what a standard and a better practice can look like, and what relevant New South Wales government policies are connected to each outcome. The guide has case studies that give examples of achieving these outcomes. We also have a further guidance section at the end of the document, just on the right here. So this provides a list and links to the related resources for WSUD concepts, each of the outcomes, and the stages in the WSUD process. So the guide provides a how-to process that can be practically applied to integrate water, landscape, and urban systems. The process is not one size fits all. It's a flexible, adaptable framework. So using the set of core principles in the guide, adopters can apply the process on multiple scales and in multiple contexts, from regional and precinct planning to detailed site design. It's an iterative process and may require you to revisit a step or stage. Each stage and the steps that sit under it are expanded on in the guide with an explanation, links to some useful resources, questions you should consider when undertaking each step, and a related case study. So the issue of ongoing maintenance with WSUD was identified by a wide range of stakeholders that we spoke to. This guide won't fix this issue, but we have tried to build the consideration of maintenance into each stage of the WSUD process. So we position ongoing funding and maintenance capacity as something to be considered in the first stage of the WSUD process in the research step. So we did this to try and make sure it was planned for and considered from the get-go, including who will be undertaking the operation and maintenance and how it will be funded. The long-term operation and maintenance is considered in the involve step of the enable stage. This step is all about involving the stakeholders, so we want to make sure the project includes those stakeholders who will be responsible for the operation and maintenance of WSUD assets early on. In the third stage, create, the guide encourages people to test their ideas to ensure operational and maintenance issues are identified and solutions are practical and appropriate. In the operate step of the deliver stage, we talk about how the long-term operation and maintenance of WSUD systems is fundamental to the success of WSUD, and how planning for operation and maintenance and the funding to undertake it is critical. We mentioned some of the existing guidance on maintaining different WSUD assets, and the guide outlines how a strong business case can help and what can be included in that. In this step, the guide also asks people to consider whether they are capturing data on existing costs for maintenance and whether a system is in place to capture future expenditure. So Blacktown were also kind enough to let us use their 6 streams integrated water strategy as an example case study for the deliver stage. And maintenance was also mentioned in some of the other case studies in the guide as well. The grow stage talks about how you can grow capability in all areas of the WSUD process. And we also provide the WSUD Maintenance and Compliance Framework as one of the resources available on in our guidance section of the document. So you can access the guide on our website now. There's a QR code there for you. We undertook a gap analysis as part of this work to develop the guide. So this was determined that there were 2 additional key pieces of work that would further support the uptake of WSUD in New South Wales. So that would be design guidance and planning guidance. So we're working on these now as part of the next stage of our WSUD project. So our WSUD design guidance project aims to translate the WSUD outcomes identified in the WSUD guide into practical, actionable design strategies and performance criteria that can be consistently applied across New South Wales and which build on relevant New South Wales government policies, guidelines, and targets. It will focus on how to apply WSUD in real projects, move beyond minimum compliance, and make integrated place-based decisions. Secondly, our WSUD in Planning and Development Guidance project aims to support the consideration of WSUD across different stages of the planning and development process, clarify expectations for documentation and information provided at each stage, and include practical tools such as templates, diagrams, and examples to support consistent and effective implementation. As this additional guidance becomes available, it will be published on our WSUD website. So if you're interested in either of the stage 2 pieces of work and would like to talk to us about them, we're happy for people to reach out. Also, please reach out if you have any thoughts on major gaps or things that the New South Wales government could do or produce that would help address those gaps. We currently only have the funding for the projects that we're doing, but we're always looking for ideas for the bottom drawer that we can pull out when we see an opportunity. and we are always looking for those opportunities. So you can contact me, or if you email the water inquiries email, your question will be directed to a subject matter expert in water group. And I've also listed our recycled water concierge email if you have a recycled water question. And before I take any questions, I just want to remind you I'm not a WSUD expert. There are also a lot of connected projects happening across the state government that our team isn't directly working on. So I'll do my best to answer any of your questions, but please forgive me if I can't answer some of them today. And for anything that I can't answer, we'll do our best. If you email us, we'll do our best to try and get you an answer or to direct it to somebody in New South Wales government who will be able to help. Thank you. Any questions?
Thanks for that, Claudia. And yeah, we don't expect you to be an expert on all of this. And there's a lot of knowledgeable people here today who might be able to answer questions if they ask you, as I know a bunch of us have had a read of that WSUD guide, which is great to see it published and curious to see how people start using it going forward. Starting off, there is a question from Justine Barrett, who is at CSIRO and currently doing a PhD in kind of stormwater at the moment, stormwater management. And so her question, which is in the chat, which is, are there any parts of the guideline that DQ hope will become mandatory in practice, or is the guide purely advisory?
At this stage, it's advisory. A lot of the requirements for WSUD at state level would be through the state planning system. So that is outside of what as I'm working in urban water policy in water groups. So we can try and influence what they do to the state planning system, but we can't change it ourselves. So we are always trying to influence that. But yes, at this stage, just advisory.
No, thank you for that. Justine, feel free to jump in if you want to chat to her. But the second question is, did DQ consult other states' territories on their WSUD guidelines to try get more of a national alignment?
So we did speak with the ACT directly. We also looked at the other jurisdictions' published documents and their guides. But we were trying, so we did definitely take from some of them, or not directly take, but we did look at them and they did influence the final product. But yeah, it was, we were trying to produce something that was specific for New South Wales and related directly to New South Wales government policies.
Thank you for that. I see Andrew Thomas has turned on his camera, so yep, he's ready. So he is the Vice President of Stormwater New South Wales. So keen to hear from, I guess, his position and the organisation's position on the guide and any questions. So Andrew.
Hi Claudia, how are you going?
Good, thanks. How are you, Andrew?
Good. Look, first of all, it's great to see a guideline like this being produced. I think it's a good start. It's nice to have something to refer to that's now, something that New South Wales government has produced. That's great. I was just thinking about one of the questions from the previous presentation was about how to get councils to adopt, the compliance programs and the WSUD Uplift that's Parramatta Catchment Group's doing in Blacktown. And one of those things, and this is just a suggestion, really, is that if you could, first of all, this WSUD guideline, I haven't gone through it in detail, but it's a general guide. It doesn't actually split out how to manage private versus public assets. But if you do stuff around that, it would be good to directly reference or overtly reference the WSUD compliance program or similar sort of things, so that people who I also am the executive officer of the Cooks River Alliance. If we were trying to get this up, it would be handy to have a New South Wales government document that referenced the WSUD compliance guidelines or similar, so that we can actually get them to take it seriously. Because I've been working with Daniel, and even though we're offering virtually free services to help them, they still look, it sort of bounces off their forehead. They don't understand and they don't know where it's coming from. So if you could think about that for future stuff, directly referencing the WSUD compliance guidelines or similar, that'd be great.
Yeah, so we have provided it as a link within the guide.
Oh, you have?
Yeah,
oh, that's great.
But
Let's start.
yes, like it is definitely great work, and we do see it as something like, so as part of this work, like we didn't want to just duplicate what's already out there, because there's already so many great resources available for people, which is one of the reasons why we do have that resource list in the guide, and why we do reference the compliance framework. But yeah, definitely something that we're keeping in mind for those other projects as well.
Yeah, anything you can do to legitimise it would be helpful, because it's a good market-based program, but the struggle is trying to get councils who are spooked by everything these days because they're so broke. At least, you know, it's something coming from the New South Wales government that might help a bit. I don't know.
No, thanks for that, Andrew. I do just want to note the comment from Angela Dunnett, which is from PRCG, which is that she can share the recommendations to you, Claudia, to help engage with DPHI. And Max, had reached out, your colleague had reached out to her already, so they can help out. But I'm curious whether Caroline maybe has any comments or questions following your experience doing the PRCG project with PRCG. Otherwise, if you have no questions, that's fine, but just curious.
Yeah, certainly there's a long engagement process, I think, of looking at the business case for this and the other benefits. That certainly was something that we've included in our engagement with more senior individuals on the project. And for that, you have to build the data as well. So I think this next year will give a good indication of what's going to be perhaps the best narrative to use in trying to seek that buy-in and deliver those multiple objectives across the board. But it's still been early days for this project, at least.
Yep. Thanks for that. Does anyone else have any questions before we look to wrap up? Andrew?
Actually, for Caroline and for Angela, I was just curious. A lot of properties do have, you know, there are certain, do have private properties have WSUD on them, but I'm not sure if all councils actually have the necessary plan, the conditions and covenants in place. Is it possible to do that retrospectively, or are you kind of buggered? Or don't you know? You might not know the answer to that. But how do you get them to do it?
I think it's going to be too hard to do it retrospectively.
Yeah. So the only thing you could do was when they do a major, they get a DA in to do a major change of change the
modification.
Yeah, that's the only. Okay, yeah. So you have to wait for them to do a major renovation or change the building.
Yeah. I think also compliance officers are pulling up a lot more on the ground, and I think if your compliance officers are well prepared, they can actually bring back some really good intel. That's certainly something we were getting from some of the compliance officers in terms of what they were finding out that wasn't actually matching what was in plans and covenants and so forth. But it has to be well worth the effort.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a systems improvement to begin with.
Yeah, because I guess to your question, Andrew, because I'm going to jump in and respond to this a bit, but they just retrospectively, it is a bit harder at the moment at the New South Wales level. There is the legislation in the POEO Act around it's illegal to cause water pollution. However, that is kind of that best thing at state level. But it'd be great to see something stating it needs to happen, so then it can be a bit easier retrospectively.
Yeah, cool.
There's a question from Russell Cadman for you, Claudia. Including potable water into WSUD, WSUD replace the term integrated water management cycle?
No. So New South Wales government also has a integrated water cycle management framework. So this WSUD guide sits underneath that, as well as underneath the Better Placed guide, which is the urban design framework. So we've positioned WSUD as incorporating integrated water cycle management, urban design, and urban ecology The reason for including potable water is to recognise that water-sensitive urban design can also have positive impacts on reducing potable water use and things like that. So it's also taking the view of water-sensitive urban design as something that includes the whole water cycle.
No, thanks for that. Does anyone else have any questions, or I'll look to wrap things up so everyone can get going? Just going to share my screen. So just looking to wrap things up so that everyone can get going. But look, the next network, thank you all for coming along today. The next network meeting will be on the 12th of August at 2 p.m. Sydney-based time. You can register via that QR code, go to the website soon. It's not updated yet on the website, or there will be an email going out after today with the details to register for the next meeting. Just want to say thank you for the presenters, to Claudia, to Angela, to Caroline for coming along and presenting on the work that you and your organizations are doing. It's great to see, and yeah, I thought it was important to give you that opportunity and platform to present to this network. I would encourage people to be following along with the work that they're doing, and yeah, reach out to them if you have questions, and if you're curious about anything I'm doing, you can email me, call me, you can follow us on LinkedIn, or reach out to me. The recording and slides will be up hopefully in the next few days. But I'm happy to stick around if anyone has any questions or wants to chat further. Thank you everyone, and see you at the next meeting.
Thanks very much.